She kept threatening to end the pregnancy. I finally said, "Then do it." Those words, harsh and unyielding, hung in the air like a storm cloud refusing to dissipate. They were spoken in a moment of frustration, but their impact was immediate and irreversible. When I first learned my girlfriend was pregnant, a wave of emotions crashed over me: excitement, fear, disbelief. We were young, maybe too young, but despite the shock, we agreed to try and make it work. I remember that conversation vividly. We sat on the couch, hands intertwined, hearts beating in cautious harmony as we whispered promises to each other, vowing to navigate this unexpected journey together. Before the pregnancy, our relationship had been growing stronger. We had found a rhythm, a delicate balance that felt promising. It was as if life had finally granted us a reprieve from the chaos that often accompanies young love. But the news of the pregnancy introduced a new dynamic, one that neither of us was fully prepared for. My girlfriend, always prone to anxiety, found her fears magnified. The weight of the future pressed heavily upon her, and I could see the strain in her eyes, hear it in her voice. Our arguments, once infrequent and easily resolved, became more common. They were like sudden thunderstorms on a summer day, unpredictable and intense. And with each argument came a threat, a knife to the gut. She would talk about terminating the pregnancy. It wasn't a one-time thing. No, it happened whenever she was upset, and it left me feeling helpless. Desperation would claw at me, a silent scream trapped in my chest as I struggled to find the right words to soothe her fears. I knew her anxiety was spiraling, and I wanted to be her anchor, her safe harbor in the storm. But every time she threatened to end the pregnancy, it felt as though she was pulling away, leaving me adrift in an ocean of uncertainty. I tried to rationalize her words, telling myself that she didn't mean them, that it was the fear talking. But the more it happened, the harder it became to convince myself. Our arguments often revolved around finances. Money, or the lack thereof, was a constant source of tension. We were two young people trying to make ends meet, and the added responsibility of a child was daunting. One evening, we found ourselves in the car. Her request to stop by McDonald's met with my insistence that we needed to save money. A simple disagreement, nothing more. But then, like clockwork, she said it again, that we wouldn't have to worry about finances if she was no longer pregnant. In that moment, something snapped inside of me. A dam broke, releasing a flood of frustration and exhaustion that had been building for weeks. "Then go ahead. What's stopping you?" I asked, my voice cold and unfamiliar to my own ears. "Or do I have to schedule the appointment for you too, since I forgot that's how things work now?" The words were out before I could stop them, and as soon as they were spoken, I knew I had crossed the line. Her face twisted in anger, and she started screaming at me, calling me heartless, accusing me of not understanding her, of not being considerate. She told me I disgusted her, and the venom in her voice was a knife twisting in my heart. She left the car and refused to sleep in our bed, choosing instead the couch or the nursery room, a place meant for hope and new beginnings, now a refuge from the pain between us. I spent the next few days walking on eggshells, my mind a tumult of regret and confusion. I wanted to apologize, to take back what I had said, but a part of me was tired of the manipulation, the constant threat hanging over us like a guillotine. I was trapped in a cycle of guilt and defensiveness, unsure of how to break free. In the quiet moments, I would replay our conversations in my head, searching for signs I might have missed, clues to how we had ended up here. I remembered the good times, the laughter, and the dreams we had shared, and wondered if they were enough to bring us back from the edge. But the days passed, and the distance between us grew. Her silence was a chasm, and I didn't know how to bridge it. I thought about reaching out to her friends, her family, anyone who might help, but I hesitated, afraid of making things worse, of exposing our private struggles to the world. At night, lying alone in our bed, I would stare at the ceiling, my mind drifting to thoughts of the future. What kind of father would I be? Would I even get the chance to find out? The uncertainty gnawed at me, and I would turn over, trying to find solace in sleep that wouldn't come. In the end, it was a conversation with my own parents that brought a moment of clarity. They had always supported me, offered guidance when I needed it most. I called them one evening, my voice hesitant, as I explained the situation, laying bare the turmoil that had consumed my life. My father listened quietly, and when I finished, he let out a long sigh. "Son," he said, his voice steady and calm, "relationships are hard work, especially when you're dealing with something as big as this. But you have to remember that it's not just about you. It's about both of you and what you want for your future. You need to talk to her, really talk and listen. Don't just hear the words, listen to what's underneath them." His words resonated with me, a beacon of hope in the darkness. I realized that in my own fear and frustration, I had stopped truly listening to her. I had been so focused on the threats, on the hurtful words, that I had forgotten the person behind them, the woman I loved, who was just as scared and lost as I was. The next morning, I found her in the nursery, sitting in the rocking chair we had bought just a few weeks before. She looked up as I entered, her eyes wary but open, willing to listen. I sat down on the floor in front of her, taking a deep breath as I gathered my thoughts. I'm sorry, I began, the words spilling out in a rush. I'm sorry for what I said, for not being there for you the way I should have. I know you're scared and I am too, but I want us to figure this out together, to find a way to make this work for both of us and for the baby. She looked at me for a long moment, her eyes searching mine, and I held my breath, waiting for her response. Finally, she nodded, a small gesture, but one that carried the weight of possibility. I'm scared, she admitted, her voice trembling. I don't know if I'm ready for this, for any of it. I reached for her hand, holding it tightly in mine. We'll figure it out, I promised. We'll take it one day at a time, and we'll face it together. You're not alone in this. We sat there for a long time, in the small room that had become a symbol of our hopes and fears, and talked. We talked about everything. Our fears, our dreams, our worries for the future. And as the sun began to set, casting the room in a warm golden light, I felt something shift between us. A new understanding, a new beginning. It won't be easy. I know that. There will be more arguments, more nights spent questioning and doubting. But as we sat there side by side, I felt a renewed sense of hope. Hope that we could find our way through the storm, that we could build a future for ourselves and for our child. Looking back, I realized that those moments of conflict, those harsh words spoken in anger, were part of a larger journey, a journey that taught me the importance of communication, of empathy, of truly listening to the people we love. It's a lesson I'll carry with me, wherever this path may lead. And as I sit here now sharing this story, I hope it serves as a reminder to anyone who's listening. Love is complicated and relationships are never easy. But with patience, understanding, and a willingness to grow together, even the hardest challenges can become opportunities for connection and growth. In the days that followed, a tentative peace settled over us, fragile but present. We tread lightly, aware of the delicate truce we had forged, both of us cautious not to shatter it with careless words. There was a quiet understanding that we were both wounded, both grappling with the enormity of the changes we faced. We were like two people on opposite sides of a canyon, slowly building a bridge, plank by plank, with each conversation, each small act of kindness. The nursery, once a refuge of solitude for her, became a place of reconnection for us. Each evening, we would find ourselves there, drawn by an unspoken need to be close, to remind ourselves of the life we were creating together. We would sit in silence or talk softly, the room filled with the gentle creak of the rocking chair and the faint scent of fresh paint. One night, as we sat together, her hand resting on her growing belly, she turned to me with a look of vulnerability that took my breath away. Do you think we can really do this? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Her question echoed my own fears, the doubts that lingered in the back of my mind. But I knew my answer mattered, not just to her, but to the fragile peace we had found. I believe we can, I said, hoping to convey the conviction I was still finding within myself. We won't be perfect, but we'll do our best, and that's enough. She nodded, a small, almost imperceptible smile playing at the corners of her lips. It was a moment of shared hope, a reminder that we were in this together despite the challenges that lay ahead. As the weeks passed, we began to rediscover the rhythm of our relationship, the easy companionship that had drawn us together in the first place. There were still moments of tension, times when her anxiety would flare up, or when I would retreat into myself, overwhelmed by the responsibility of impending fatherhood, but we were learning to navigate these moments with more patience, more compassion for each other. I found myself paying closer attention to her, noticing the small changes, the way she would absent-mindedly cradle her belly, or how her face would soften when we talked about the future. I realized that her threats, those awful words that had cut so deeply, were born out of fear, not malice. And in recognizing that fear, I found a new resolve to support her, to be the partner she needed. We began attending prenatal classes together, an experience that was equal parts daunting and enlightening. Surrounded by other expectant couples, we learned about the intricacies of childbirth, the realities of parenting, and the importance of being a team. Each class brought us closer, fortifying the bond we were rebuilding. One evening, after a particularly enlightening session on coping with stress and anxiety during pregnancy, she turned to me as we walked to the car. "Thank you," she said softly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "For what?" I asked, genuinely curious. "For sticking with me," she replied, squeezing my hand. "For not giving up when things got hard." Her gratitude touched me deeply, and in that moment, I realized how far we had come from the turmoil of those early days. "I couldn't do this without you," I admitted, feeling the weight of my own gratitude. Together, we faced the uncertainty of our future, buoyed by the knowledge that we were stronger as a unit. The threat of termination no longer hung over us like a specter. Instead, it had become a catalyst for growth, a reminder of the power of love and understanding. As I reflect on our journey, I am struck by how close we came to losing everything, how easily our fears could have torn us apart. But in working through our differences, in choosing to listen and to forgive, we found something more profound, a deeper connection, a shared purpose. The path we are on is still fraught with challenges, but I am no longer afraid. With each passing day, I am more certain that we will weather whatever storms come our way, that we will rise to meet the demands of parenthood with courage and grace. And as we prepare to welcome our child into the world, I carry with me the lessons we have learned. That love is not just a feeling, but an action, a choice to stand by each other even when it's difficult. That in listening and understanding, we can find the strength to overcome even the most daunting obstacles. Our story is still unfolding, a testament to the power of resilience and hope. And as I share it with you, I hope it serves as a beacon for those who find themselves in similar struggles, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is a path forward, a path lit by the light of understanding and the promise of new beginnings. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself reflecting more deeply on the journey we were on. The initial shock and turmoil of the situation had given way to a steadier rhythm, a kind of resilience that surprised me. I still had moments where I felt utterly unprepared for the responsibility looming ahead, but they were now peppered with bursts of excitement and anticipation. Every morning, as the first light of dawn crept through our bedroom window, I would lie there, listening to the soft rhythm of her breathing beside me. Those quiet moments became a sanctuary, a time for me to gather my thoughts before the world demanded my attention. It was during these moments that I realized just how much I had changed, how much we both had. I often found myself thinking about our child, wondering what kind of person they would become. Would they inherit her laugh, that infectious sound that could light up a room, or would they have my stubborn streak, the one that got me through countless challenges but sometimes made life more difficult than it needed to be? These questions danced in my mind, a reminder of the unknowns that lay ahead. One evening, as we sat on the couch, her feet in my lap, she started talking about names. It seemed like such a simple thing, picking a name, yet it felt monumental. I watched her as she spoke, the way her eyes lit up with each suggestion, a spark of joy that was contagious. We tossed ideas back and forth, each name a possibility, a future we were shaping together. "How about Emily?" she suggested, her eyes meeting mine. I considered it, rolling the name around in my mind. "Emily," I repeated, letting it linger. "I like it. It's strong, classic." She smiled, satisfied with my response, and I felt a warmth spread through me, a connection that went beyond words. These small moments, these shared experiences began to weave a tapestry of hope and commitment. They were the building blocks of our new life, a testament to our willingness to embrace the future with open hearts. But despite the progress we made, there were still challenges to face, moments when her anxiety would rear its head, casting shadows over our newfound peace. It was during one of these times that I truly came to understand the depth of her struggles. It was a Thursday evening, the sky darkening with the promise of rain. We had just returned from a doctor's appointment where we had heard the baby's heartbeat for the first time, a rapid, reassuring thrum that filled the room with life. I thought the experience would leave us both elated, but instead she seemed distant, her eyes clouded with worry. As we sat at the kitchen table, plates of untouched food between us, I reached for her hand. "Hey," I said softly. "What's going on? You seemed off at the appointment?" She hesitated, her fingers tracing patterns on the tablecloth. "I don't know," she admitted finally, her voice barely above a whisper. I feel overwhelmed. What if I'm not a good mother? What if I can't handle this?" Her vulnerability struck me, and in that moment, I saw not just my partner, but a woman facing her deepest fears. I squeezed her hand, wanting to offer comfort, to reassure her. "You're going to be an amazing mother," I said, my voice firm with certainty. "And you're not alone in this. We're a team, remember?" She nodded, a flicker of a smile crossing her face, but I knew the doubts lingered, shadows that would take time to dispel. In the days that followed, I made a conscious effort to be there for her in more tangible ways. I started leaving little notes around the house, reminders of my love and support. I took on more chores, wanting to lighten her load, to show her that she wasn't carrying this burden alone, and slowly I began to see a change. The fear that had once seemed insurmountable began to dissipate, replaced by a growing confidence. It was as if we were finding our footing again, learning how to balance each other in this delicate dance of parenthood. As the months passed, our lives settled into a new normal, one filled with anticipation and preparation. We spent weekends assembling furniture for the nursery, each piece a symbol of the life we were building. We attended more prenatal classes, our knowledge expanding with each session, our sense of partnership deepening. And through it all, the threat that had once loomed over us seemed to fade into the background, a distant memory overshadowed by the promise of the future. Looking back now, I see how far we've come, how much we've grown. The journey hasn't been easy, but it's been worth every moment. We've learned that love is more than a feeling. It's a choice, an action that requires effort and dedication. As we stand on the brink of this new chapter, I am filled with a sense of hope and gratitude. We are not perfect, but we are committed to doing our best, to being the parents our child deserves. And as I share this story with you, I hope it serves as a reminder that even in the face of uncertainty and fear, there is always a way forward, a path illuminated by love, understanding, and the promise of new beginnings. Subscribe for more stories.